everybody. Welcome to another wonderful, wonderful week with us. We're So Random and Weird Pod. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah. I'm your host for today.
And I'm Sheena.
Uh, it was nice and dreary today. How about you?
Still 80 degrees here
Oh,
and quite a
hmm.
bit sunny than I like. But supposedly we're supposed to be getting um, some rain soon. And then everybody's like, oh, we're going to start getting into rain season. And I'm like, and that's a bad thing?
Oh, I was gonna say, hopefully takes away the heat. You kind of want to get rid of the heat. So if the rain does that, you know, yay. It was like drizzling all day here, like all day. So, yeah, I'm been kind of a bleh kind of day. Although I have to say I got some cleaning done. So, I mean, that's always a good thing. So you can't go outside, you can't enjoy the weather, you can't go to a park or anything like that. So, you know, gonna have to make do. I like I said, I got my cleaning done. Of course, there's still so much to do, but I'm happy with
Right.
what was done. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm just ready for soup. I'm ready to bake.
You know what I wanna do more fall themed food
hmm
this year,
I
like when
made
I
baked
cook.
oatmeal. Yeah. And
I
I got like the good
like the
cinnamon.
steel cut.
That's
Oh, sorry.
no, like I don't remember what it is right now, but it's like really good and it's like $7 for like, half a pound.
For cinnamon, for the cinnamon?
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's supposed to be like the cinnamon that Cinnabon uses.
Oh,
So
I can see
it's
why that would have been a little pricey because, you know.
yeah, but it's good. I love me some baked oatmeal and I this morning I woke up and I went, I'm choosing violence. So I made baked oatmeal.
Yeah, no. I love baked oatmeal. I would much rather have it like, okay, so my mom kind of raised me like, you don't do the instant crap.
Mm,
Um, she's like, steel cut oats are the best. So I get like the Irish steel cut oats in the can. Um, and so it's a little pricier, but it is really good. It is healthier for you having steel cut oatmeal from when I took all of my nutrition classes. It is healthier. Not that I don't do like the once in a while the cheapo like oatmeal and cream, you know, like the strawberries or the peaches or the blueberries, or if you want something quick. But I love baked oatmeal. It is such a comfort
yeah.
food. In my mind, you
Me,
have to have it with fruit too in it, like blueberries or peaches or something in my mind.
I usually make it with pecans or walnuts in it.
Okay.
But the thing is like so uh, yet again,
Mm.
my autistic traits come out when it comes to texture, and I hate soggy porridge. Give me congee any day. I'll eat congee any day, but
What is
I
that?
hate. It's kind of like it's rice porridge. It's a Japanese Asian kind of thing. It's delicious. It's just like overcooked rice, so it's like
Yeah.
squidgy. It's delicious, but but I hate cooked. So, and I was raised on the Quaker instant packages.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I did not I just put a little bit of water in there and mixed it up just so it was just wet enough and crunch crunch crunch. No. And and
Crunchy
and it
oatmeal? Crunchy oatmeal. Is that
well,
what you're saying?
baked oatmeal is crunchy.
Not how I eat. Ah! No, I mean, like I do fatty with it because I do like some heavy whipping cream instead of milk. Like I put a little cream in there instead of milk. when I heat it, after it comes out of the oven. I pour a little cream in there. I don't make it mushy. I don't do mushy. Um, like when I eat cereal, I maybe a drop or two of milk goes into my cereal. Okay. My daughter pours like a whole frickin' half gallon into her cereal bowl. I mean, it's floating. I mean, you barely see the cereal. I'm like, Arya, you like some cereal with your milk? Uh, I can't. I can't do that. I don't want mushy, soggy cereal. To me, that is, ugh. I have to throw it away. I can't. I cannot do it. Um, if I eat like Frosted Flakes, like my cereal is very, very crunchy, and it just has a little like splash of milk, and literally just like a very little drop or two. I mean, it's probably maybe a teaspoon of milk
Mhm.
that I eat in my cereal bowl. Um, because I just don't want soggy flakes. That's just gross to me. I'm sorry. It's just
Uh,
no.
yeah, well, I mean, it was instant oatmeal. So, I prefer crunch whenever
I'm
I
not
eat.
yeah, and I
So,
do too, but I mean, I've never actually had, unless it was like undercooked, um, oatmeal. I've never had crunchy oatmeal. So,
well, I mean, baked oatmeal's crunchy on the top,
well, I mean, if
like an
I
oat.
don't like put like liquid in it, I mean, I've never really had like crunchy oat
It's
maybe
like an
it's
oatmeal cookie.
I'm not a big oatmeal cookie fan. So, mm, it's all good though. It's all good. Um,
It always comes down to texture.
yeah, it can be a little, with texture. I'm not like my kids are more of a texture freak than I am. It's texture all the way for me. So I can't judge. I can't judge. So, all right, I'm
Ah,
gonna sit up here because I've
so,
been lounging.
yeah, and it's time for you to tell me a story.
Yes, and a story I shall tell. All right, all right. Picture it: nighttime, beautiful out, stars in the sky, nice full moon, wind whipping through the trees. A twig snaps. A distant, mournful howl of a wolf. You wait. I know. You wait, frozen. All of a sudden, probably not going to happen. Probably not going to happen.
A
So, but,
6'4" Faye. No.
but, I do want to leave you guys with this. Just think about this for a second. For most of human history, most of the humans in the world have lived with somebody somewhere genuinely believing that their neighbor, the turnip farmer next door, was secretly a wolf. Not acted kind of feral, not had anger issues, an actual wolf with fur and teeth, who went after people and ate them. All right. So they didn't just believe it quietly either. They built an entire legal system around it. They tortured people until these people agreed that they were wolves. Sound familiar? Some like witch trials kind of thing going on here. Anyway, so they wrote it into court records with the same bureaucratic seriousness that you'd use to log property disputes. So I'm going to, for the next hour, trace the history of the werewolf. Not the CGI kinds, not the guy from the movie you rented back in 2003 with the girl from the other movie, but the actual documented, deeply strange cultural history of a monster that has been with us since we had campfires to tell stories around, and quite frankly, some pretty compelling reasons to be scared of the dark. Okay. So, to start off, I'm going to start in ancient Greece with a king who really should not have served that particular dinner. We're going to spend some quality time in the courtrooms of early modern Europe, which were, and I cannot stress this enough, not kidding around. Okay. And then, because no history of the werewolf is complete without it, we're going to spend a good chunk of this episode in a Universal Studios backlot in 1941. Because that's where a makeup artist, a screenwriter, and Lon Chaney Jr. sat down and almost by accident invented half of what you think you know about werewolves. I'm excited. Silver bullets, full moons, the idea that this is hereditary, that it's a curse passed down like bad knees. None of that is ancient. Okay. Most of it is younger than sliced bread. So I'm going to get comfortable. You do too. And maybe don't do this. Don't listen to us alone in the woods tonight. That's all I'm saying.
Don't go into the woods tonight. You might, what is
Exactly.
it? You might die of fright. Oh, I just remember, don't go into the woods tonight. Something you die of fright.
Yeah, there's like bump in the night or so. Yeah, this is my deal. I love the Wolfman and the werewolves, and not the cheesy ugly ones that look like a costume. Anyway, so the ancient world. So we're gonna start, like I said, in Greece. We're gonna start at the beginning, or at least the beginning that we can prove. Which in the monster business is always a little further back than you'd like, and never quite as far back as people online will tell you. The werewolf, or more precisely, the idea of a human transforming into a wolf-like predator, shows up independently in cultures that had zero contact with each other. Ancient Greece, Norse sagas, American folklore, native traditions across North America involving skinwalkers, which, quite important detour, are a distinct and culturally specific concept from Navajo tradition, not a werewolf, and not something I'm going to dramatize here, because it's not mine to dramatize, and quite frankly, there's real culture harm to flattening it into a spooky podcast content. So, different topic, different respect required, but moving on. What's interesting is why the idea keeps showing up. Anthropologists have a fairly unromantic answer. Wolves were the apex predator most humans actually lived alongside. Not tigers, not dragons, wolves. Pack hunters, intelligent, capable of taking down something much bigger than themselves through coordination. If you're an early human trying to explain the scariest, smartest threat in your environment, and you're always trying to explain why people sometimes do horrifying, predatory things to other people, the wolf is right there. It's the obvious metaphor. It's also, unfortunately, kind of insulting to wolves who mostly want to eat rabbits and be left alone, but nobody consulted them. So, you know. Uh, so let's talk about lichen, because lichen is where the word comes from, lycanthropy, and also because Lycan's story is a genuinely upsetting little myth, up as a kind of a morality tale. In the version most commonly told, recorded by the Roman poet Ovid in Metamorphoses, Lycan is a king of Arcadia. Zeus, who is at this point in Greek mythology, is basically wandering the earth as a divine mystery shopper, testing whether mortals will treat a stranger with hospitality. Shows up at Lycan's court disguised as an ordinary traveler. Okay. And Lycan decides to test him right back to test Zeus. So, which is fine. Bold move, but fine. Except Lycan's test involves serving Zeus a meal made partly from a human being. So apparently we're doing eating people here. So, some versions say a hostage was used. Some say Lycan's own son was used. Sounds like a great guy, by the way. That if that is true, and obviously it tells you what kind of guy we're working with here. So Zeus was not fooled. He is in fact extremely displeased. What I would be too. Let me tell you. He flips the table. Literally, in some tellings, as a punishment, transforms Lycan into a wolf. So Ovid describes him fleeing into the countryside, his jaws foaming, his old thirst for slaughter like coming back, and Now it's permanent. He's terrified even of the sheep he used to just steal from. He's terrified. He's terrifying. So here's what I find chilling about this story, and it has nothing to do with fangs. The punishment isn't really the wolf part. The wolf part is revealing what was already there. Lycan didn't become a monster. He already was a monster. Zeus just stopped letting him hide it. So instead of, like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing, um, that idea, like I said, the wolf shape is less of a curse and more of an X-ray, is going to come up again and again for the next 3,000 years. And it's a lot more disturbing than guy grows fur once a month, honestly. So, the Greeks weren't alone. The Roman writer Petronius, in the Saticon, which is like a wild, gossipy, extremely unserious text, which was like the ancient equivalent of a group chat, includes a soldier telling a story about a fire, um, around a fire about a companion who stripped off his clothes at a crossroads, urinated in a circle around them, an actual detail in the text. And yes, historians have had to write academic papers using the phrase urinated in a circle. So let's just all sit with that for a second there. And he turned
How
into a
big of
wolf.
a circle? And
Exactly.
like, is he going around people? Like, is this like duck, duck, goose? But he's like peeing.
Yeah, pee, 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 pee. But maybe it was a circle protection. Maybe they felt the pee was protected. I don't know. So he the crossroads detail matters, by the way, that crossroads. The crossroads show up constantly in werewolf and witch folklore across cultures. So um they're liminal spaces. Neither one road nor the other road, and the liminal spaces are where like transformation folklore loves to happen. Not fully day, not fully night, not fully man, not fully beast. The folklore is very consistent about its real estate preferences. So, Norse tradition gives us the wolf skins story. I am not Norse. I have no idea how to pronounce that name of the wolf skin stories. So if you want to look it up, great. I have no idea.
Say there's the whole premise of them, what is called like a berserker,
Mhm.
where they become, like they have the pelts of the
Yeah.
animals,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's a bear
Yep.
or whatever, and
Yeah.
they possibly ingest hallucinogenics or whatever
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
build themselves up into a frenzy that they think that they are the
They
animal.
are correct. So like I said, so Norse tradition, gives us the wolf skins. The warriors mentioned alongside the berserkers, um, in the sagas and other like old Norse sources who wore wolf pelts into battle and were said to fight with a kind of animal ferocity, channeling the wolf rather than being cursed into one. This is generally a different flavor of the myth. Transformation is power, not punishment. And it's one that gets almost entirely steamrolled by the version that wins out later, which is the version where turning into a wolf is a tragedy, a disease, a thing done to you rather than by you. Uh, so let's keep that tension in our back pockets. We're gonna the curse versus power, victim versus predator, because in about 40 minutes, a man named Kurt Sodomak is going to sit down at a typewriter in Los Angeles and settle that argument, culturally speaking, for the next 80 years. But we're not there yet. Darn. We need to go somewhere much, much worse than a Greek myth. We need to go to the witch trials. Yay. I told you it's there somewhere. Sounds very familiar. Yep. All right. So, um, here is part of the episode where I have to stop being charming for a while and silly, because what happened in Europe between roughly the 1500s and 1650s wasn't folklore. Um, it was a legal religious apparatus that tortured and executed real, specific, named people for the crime of being werewolves. This is documented. It's in trial records and confessions extracted under torture and execution records written by observers who chillingly often described the proceedings with a kind of bureaucratic satisfaction. I'm not going to sensationalize this beyond what happened because what happened doesn't need embellishing. It's already the worst version of itself. So we're going to talk about Peter Stump, Stumpp. In 1589, in the town of Bedburg, near Cologne, Germany, a wealthy farmer named Peter Stump was arrested and accused of being a werewolf, responsible for a string of brutal killings. Livestock, and according to the confession extracted from him, numerous people, including children, over a period of roughly 25 years. Under torture, and I want to be precise here, because the pamphlets from the period are precise in that horrible clinical way propaganda often is. Stump confessed to owning a magical belt, allegedly given to him by the devil, that transformed him into what witnesses described as a wolf with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like brands of fire, strong claws, and a huge body. He confessed to killing and cannibalizing the victims, including his own son.
My, what big eyes you have.
Exactly. He was
Wonder if
executed in
that's where
October.
wonder
Yeah.
if that's where Grimm
Yeah.
got that from, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. He was executed in October 1589 in a manner designed as public spectacle. Broken on the wheel, flesh torn with hot pincers, decapitated, then burned. His daughter and mistress, also implicated, were executed alongside of him. The town reportedly erected a monument, a wolf figure mounted on a pole, as a warning. Now, here's the thing historians point out, and it's important that it's the actual scary part of the story once you look at it straight on. There is no wolf. Okay. There was no belt. What there almost certainly was a wealthy farmer who confessed under torture so severe that people will confess to anything at all, to make it stop. Historians studying the Bedburg case note the trial occurred amid intense regional religious conflict between Catholic and Protestant factions. Economic hardship, broader continental panic about witchcraft that swept up tens of thousands of victims across roughly 2 centuries. So, the werewolf, in other words, wasn't hiding in the German countryside in 1589. It was hiding in the legal and religious systems that needed a monster to explain famine, disease, and violence, and found it easier to manufacture one out of a human being than to sit with the possibility that the world was just cruel and chaotic on its own. No fur required. No fur. So this is, I think, the single most important thing to understand about werewolf history before we get to the fun part, the werewolf trials, ran in parallel with the witch trials. So, they use the same, theological logic, a pact with the devil, a transformation granted through demonic power, and killed people through the same machinery. Estimates of the total witch trial executions across Europe during this period range widely depending on region and record survival, but scholars generally place the toll in the tens of thousands. Werewolf trials specifically were less numerous, but followed the identical script and concentrated heavily in French, German, and some Baltic regions. So there is a French case as well, the case of Gilles Garnier. He was tried and executed near Dole in 1573. It followed nearly the same identical pattern to Stump's. A confession under torture describing an ointment or salve that enabled transformation, accusations of killing children, and a horrific public execution. In this case, he was burned at the stake. So I want to sit in something uncomfortable with you for a second, and then we'll come up for air, I promise. The idea of the werewolf as a scapegoat mechanism, a way for a community under stress to the point that one person would say the wrongness is contained in him specifically, and now it can be burned out of us, is arguably the most historical significant thing the werewolf myth ever did. It wasn't metaphorical. It had a body count. Real people with real names, real families, real turnip farmers, were killed because a frightened and structurally cruel legal system needed a monster with a face. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, a lot of things were really cruel then.
Yeah. No, I mean it was, religious, deep religious beliefs and not a lot of logical thinking, rational thinking. Because everything was steeped in religion. Everything was steeped in the Bible. Everything was steeped in the devil.
Well, that and also brutality, just pure brute.
Yeah,
You know,
it also, yeah, I mean, they didn't see any problems with taking out the root cause. And if, someone is possessed by the devil or is in cahoots with the devil, um, there is no safe way to squash that except for a brutal death. Usually burning something out of you,
drawn
burning
and
the body,
cornered, beheaded.
beheaded. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. I promise the rest of this episode gets to be a bit more fun and the campy silver bullet howling at a fake moon on a Hollywood backplot sense of fun. But I didn't want to breeze through the past with the trials. Because a lot of werewolf content does, and I think that's a disservice to the people who actually died over this. So also, deep breath, because we are about to leave 16th century Bedburg and France and travel directly into the much safer, much sillier, much more spandex adjacent world of what people think they know about werewolves and where all of that actually came from. So, spoiler, it's mostly one movie. So, one incredibly influential, moderately budgeted 1941 monster movie made by a team of Universal Studio employees who were, and I say this with love, absolutely just making up what they wanted. All right.
Oh, gee, like history.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. So, quick pop quiz, no pressure because I can't actually hear you. Um,
Well,
what's
I'm
the,
here.
well, yes, but I'm going to ask this, I guess, theoretical kind of question. Full moon, silver bullets, wolf's bane, hereditary curse, usually passed by a bite. A werewolf who has no memory of what he did the night before and wakes up covered in, let's be delicate, evidence. How old do you think those tropes are? Medieval, ancient, older than the pyramids? Probably right.
1970s.
It feels ancient, right? Yeah. No, but it feels like something your grandmother or grandfather would have whispered by candlelight. It's not. Um, Almost all of that is from one movie, 1941, and we're getting there, I promise. But first, I want to walk through these tropes individually because the wait, that's not ancient folklore reveal is genuinely one of my favorite things about doing this research. Of course, I knew it, but anyway. Um, silver. Silver as a weapon against supernatural evil does have older folkloric roots. Silver appears across various European traditions, like as a pure metal associated with the moon and with warding off malevolent spirits generally. Generally, like not werewolves specifically, but silver bullets specifically as the werewolf's one true weakness. There's no consistent trial record, no consistent regional folklore that nails this down before the 19th and 20th centuries. And it really crystallizes, pun regrettably intended, in popular fiction and film. It's less ancient wisdom and more a screenwriter's need to solve a problem for a three arc act structure. So yeah. Made for the movies. The full moon. So this one is generally surprising, um, because it feels like the most ancient part of the myth. Older confessions and folklores, including some of the trial testimony we just talked about, don't consistently tie transformation to lunar cycles at all. Some traditions describe werewolves who could transform at will, using an object like a belt or a salve, like we discussed before, like, Stump's belt, Garnier's ointment. Others describe a more general, unpredictable curse. The specific ironclad rule of transforms involuntarily exactly once per month, precisely at the full moon, is a narrative convenience that kind of gets cemented again, largely through 20th century film, because the monster attacks on a predictable schedule is enormously useful if you're trying to build suspense across a monster movie. So, wolfsbane, the plant's it's a plant. It does have a genuinely ancient reputation, kind of as a poison. It's real. It's toxic. Um, the Greeks and Romans knew it as dangerous, and it does show up in folklore associated with witchcraft, dark magic, broadly. Its specific role as a werewolf repellent or cure is again largely a dramatic invention popularized in the 20th century. So, um, the bite as hereditary curse transmission mechanism. A werewolf bites you, now you're a werewolf too. The vampire style contagion model, by the way, this one is almost entirely a modern narrative device. Older folklore is much more varied and much weirder. Transformation via pact with the devil, via a cursed object, via being born on a certain day, via parental curse, via simply being punished by a god for bad behavior, like Lycan was. So if basically none of this was fixed, consistent folklore before the 20th century, where did it all suddenly click into place? All at once, it was like a kind of a tidy rule set we all just kind of absorbed through cultural osmosis. The way Frankenstein's monster says fire bad, even if you've never read Mary Shelley. Um, it just kind of clicked into place in a research department at Universal Studios in 1941 because of a German Jewish immigrant screenwriter, legendary makeup artist, and the son of the original Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, the only thing that I ever had a problem with is the way that they did the wolf man, because it just reminded me of people who have like the hyper keratosis or whatever it is, where their face is just completely like
Fur,
everything. Yeah.
hair,
Well,
it's
it's
all hair.
hair,
It's all
but
hair.
it's like but it's just like the way, because a lot of it, the hair grows back this way and
Yeah.
it just looks round, you
Hmm.
know. That's the only thing that I have never liked about the 40s Wolfman is
That's what I
that.
love. That's what I
I
love.
want a
I
wolf.
love no, the poof. I call it his poof. He has a poof. In the original movie, he has a poof. Um, and I love that because it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Um, yeah, no, that's my wolf man.
But I want a wolf. Okay? I don't if they're going to be a wolf man, they're going to have the ears and they look like a wolf. They're not going to look like
Then why call him a wolf man if they don't look like a man? I
well,
mean,
the
that can be
rest
a
of them could be a
werewolf.
man.
That can be.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, don't even say. Don't. We're not even talking about she wolves. Oh God, no. We're not even talking about she wolves. Oh my God.
I'm not
Um,
talking about she-wolves. I'm
I
talking
know.
about, you know,
Wolf man. He's a man who's a wolf. That werewolves can be those fugly, whatever they are. They look like costumes, and the howling. The howling are werewolves. They're ugly. They're horrible. Wasn't even scared by those things anyway. The wolf man, I lock my doors for. Thank you very much. Anyway. Um, All right. So this is the big one. So I'm gonna take a sip of my drink here. But by 1941, Universal Studios had already made a fortune off of monsters. Dracula in 31, Frankenstein same year, 1931, The Mummy in 1932. God, classic movies. The studio had essentially invented the modern monster movie as a genre and a business model. And by the early 40s, they were looking for the next reliable monster to put in a rubber mask and a promotional poster. There had been an earlier werewolf film, 1935, Werewolf of London, starred Harry Hall.
Hmm.
My son actually thinks he's scarier than Lon Chaney's Wolfman. I can't even. The man gets dressed. As a what? As a wolfman who gets dressed, he puts a frock coat on or something before he goes outside. I'm like, what are you doing? You're an animal. What are you doing? Anyway, I digress. Um, it's worth a footnote because it actually got there first with a few of the tropes, including a version of the transformation via plant idea. But it didn't stick the way what came next did. Which, Werewolf of London is the answer to a trivia question. The werewolf is the reason the trivia question exists. The Wolfman. My Wolfman. Sorry. I'm so cheesy. Um, so the Wolfman was written by Kurt Sodomak. And his story is worth pausing on for a second because I think it explains a lot about what makes the film hit differently than you'd expect from a B movie monster picture. Um, And Sotomac was a German Jewish writer who fled Nazi regimes in the 1930s, eventually landing in Hollywood. So he was, by multiple later accounts, including his own reflections and interviews, working through real trauma um, and real fear about persecution, about a curse being placed on you by forces entirely outside your control, about becoming something monstrous through no choice or fault of your own, in the eyes of people who had already decided what you were. There really was probably something behind the story that he was writing, in his own life, that fear and that trauma. So I don't want to overstate this into some kind of tidy one-to-one allegory. Sotomac was first and foremost a working studio writer turning around a commercial script on a deadline. But it's generally hard to read his later comments about the film and not feel something real was bleeding through the werewolf. The suit and fog machine trappings. He reportedly said later in life that the curse of the werewolf was in some way about his curse. Being marked, hunted, transformed into an enemy by circumstances entirely beyond his control. So, all right. So the film stars Lon Chaney Jr., who was the son of Lon Chaney Sr., the legendary silent era man of a thousand faces, who played like Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame. Chaney Jr. had spent a career somewhat in his father's enormous shadow. And the Wolfman became, by wide consensus among film historians, the defining role of his career. The one part that was unambiguously, permanently his. No one else ever played the Wolfman. 4 films. Well, 5 if you count Abbott and Costello, but they say it's not canon. Where the Wolfman was in the movies through Universal. Lon Chaney Jr. played him every single time. They didn't get anyone else to, unlike Frankenstein, who was played by multiple actors, unlike Dracula, who's played by multiple actors. Wolfman was always Lon Chaney Jr.'s. So, or Creighton Chaney, that was his real name. Sorry, I'm a geek. I know. All right. So Lon plays Larry Talbot, a man returning to his ancestral home in Wales, an American who'd been estranged from his aristocratic family. His father is played by Claude Rains, who ironically plays the Phantom of the Opera later on, which I thought was funny because, here is Lon's dad, and he plays Phantom in a later movie. After the death of his brother, like I said, Larry comes home and kind of reunites with his estranged father. Talbot is drawn into a budding romance with a local shopkeeper, Gwen Conliffe, who's played by Evelyn Ankers. And on a walk through the fog-drenched countryside one night, tries to save a woman from what he believes is an attacking wolf. He beats the creature to death with a silver-headed cane, a cane purchased in a detail that becomes deeply ironic by the film's end as a gift decorated with a wolf's head and a pentagram. He's bitten in the struggle. The wolf turns out to have actually been a man, a gypsy fortune teller named Bella, played by Bela Lugosi, who it's revealed was himself a werewolf. So, from here, the film builds its dread the way the best of these old Universal pictures always did. Your atmosphere. Ooh, I knocked over my thing. God bless. I'm getting so into it. I'm knocking over my microphone. Um. Anyway, um, yeah. So your atmosphere rather than gore, because it's 1940s. You don't show blood. You don't show anything. Here comes a bloodied body. Who was killed by a werewolf. Um. Fog rolling across the moor, that gorgeous doom-laden, studio-built forest set with all crooked trees and impossible mist, and that Universal reused across, half a dozen monster movies, and they're always the same. I loved it. It was so cheesy, so campy. A gypsy woman, Maliva, who was played by Maria Ospinskaya. My mom loves that name, by the way. Who becomes the film's Oracle of Dread, delivering the poem that would go on to outlive the movie itself, quoted and misquoted in werewolf media for the next 8 decades. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Ooh. That verse, the even a man who is pure in heart poem, is, as far as film historians and folklorists alike can tell, entirely Sotomax's invention for this screenplay. It sounds like it should be centuries old. Um, it has the cadence of something translated out of a crumbling grimoire. It is, in fact, 39 words written by a guy at Warner Brothers, adjacent studio commissary, sometime in 1941. And it has been more culturally influential on the popular understanding of werewolf folklore than probably every genuine European trial record combined. That's not a criticism, by the way. It's one of the most quietly impressive pieces of pop culture world building of the entire 20th century. Um, it's not just folklore. It's a really, really good screenwriter's invention that folklore washed itself into the culture so thoroughly that most people, myself very much included until I actually researched this episode, assumed it was ancient. So, um, so Talbot begins transforming, and here's where Jack Pierce comes in, makeup artist. The same Universal makeup artist who was responsible for Boris Karloff's, iconic flat-headed Frankenstein monster design. Pierce's transformation makeup for Cheney was a legendarily brutal process. Layers of yak hair were applied directly to Cheney's skin with spirit gum, one section at a time. So with the film shot in incremental stop-motion style stages, so the transformation could be shown, agonizingly, frame by frame, dissolve by dissolve. So Cheney reportedly sat through hours of this application repeatedly for a single scene's worth of transformation footage. And later in interviews across his career spoke about the physical toll of it with the kind of weary first-person authority that none of Universal's other monster actors quite had, because none of them had to sit still under all that yak hair and spirit gum for as many hours as he did. And I think it was a point of contention between him and Jack Pierce. Jack Pierce was very old school. He did not want to make anything fake. He wanted to use real things. He wanted to make it look real. He did not want to use rubber masks or anything like that. He built his mask.
Even today, still, when people do special effect makeup, they're in it for hours.
Yeah. The sad thing is, Universal eventually let Jack Pierce go, and it came just before Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and you can tell the difference, or at least I can tell the difference, between the beginning, like the 1941, the Wolfman makeup, and the Abbott and Costello makeup, because Jack Pierce was no longer doing makeup for Universal Studios at the time of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Um, and it's painfully obvious that it, it doesn't look as real. It doesn't look. It looks more fake, unfortunately. Um, and I mean, it's still scary, but yeah. Anyway, um, so there is something almost sweetly literal about that. The actor playing the man cursed to slowly, helplessly transform into something monstrous against his will, spent his actual real workday slowly, physically transforming one uncomfortable layer at a time, unable to do much of anything about it either. So I think that is definitely ironic. Um, I don't think I'd want it any other way. It was perfect makeup. It was perfect makeup.
Mhm.
So Talbot spends the rest of the film increasingly convinced he's cursed, increasingly unable to get anyone, including his own rational, scientifically minded father, to believe him, which is its own terror in itself. If no one, even his father, believes him, believes what he's saying, believes that he's transforming, that he's, not thinking about this, but he can't help it. The film is as much about not being believed as it is about the wolf itself. It builds to a genuinely mournful climax in the fog-bound woods, where Talbot's father, still not truly believing the curse is real, ultimately beats his own transformed son to death with that same silver-headed cane. The cane that killed Bella um, at the film's opening, now closing the circle and killing Larry Talbot. As Talbot dies, he transforms back into human form in front of his father and Gwen, and the film ends not on a triumphant monster slaying note, but on grief. A father who has just killed his son, who has previously lost his other son, a silver-tipped cane sitting in the mist, Maleva's closing lines about the wandering soul finally finding peace. So it's genuinely one of the more emotional, somber monster movie endings of the entire Universal cycle. And I think that somberness is a huge part of why the Wolfman mythology stuck the way it did. Culturally, in a way that some of the studio's flashier monsters didn't. Dracula is a predator. Frankenstein's monster is a tragic, wronged creation. But Larry Talbot is structurally a victim who is also the threat. Cursed through no fault of his own, unable to stop himself, killed by the person who loves him most. That's an incredibly potent shape for a monster story, and it's the shape that virtually every werewolf story since has borrowed, whether it knows it or not. And here's the kicker. The thing I love most about the whole saga, almost nothing that everyone knows about werewolves, like full moons, silver bullets, wolfbane, the hereditary bite curse, the tragic sympathetic monster who didn't ask for this, predates this one film by more than a few years, if that. Wolfman wasn't really adapting werewolf folklore. It was writing werewolf folklore retroactively for all of us, forever. Kurt Sodomak, a guy who reportedly needed the paycheck, invented a fake 39-word old country poem on a deadline. And 85 years later, you could probably recite half of it from memory without knowing where it came from. That's not folklore surviving through oral tradition across the centuries. That's just really, really good copywriting. I have to say also, Maria Osmanskaya, um, the prayer that she says over both Bela and Larry Talbot. I mean, that's was also written by Kurt Vonnegut, and yet it's so enchanting. The way you walked was thorny through no fault of your own. But as the rain enters the soil, the water enters the river. So tears run to a predestined end. Your suffering is over, my son. It sounds like it's a real, but it was all written by one man. It's just incredible. It's incredible. Um, so The Wolfman was a substantial hit for Universal. And Chaney would go on to reprise the role of Larry Talbot, like I said, across multiple sequels and crossover films through the 1940s, including team-ups with the Frankenstein monster, and eventually the studio's whole Monster Rally era, where basically every Universal creature ended up in the same fog-drenched Transylvanian black lot. at once, because if one monster sells tickets, four monsters sell even more tickets. This math. So, um, but the cultural footprint of the original 1941 film, specifically, the rules it invented almost as afterthoughts in service of a tight, moody 70-minute B picture, is the actual reason that I'm with you right now and talking to you about the Wolf Man and what kills a werewolf. Silver bullet, right? What you'd say. What kills a werewolf? So, with total confidence, you'd be citing 1941 Hollywood, not 1589 Bedburg, Germany, whether you knew it or not. So, yeah. So once Sotomax rules were out in the world, something interesting happened. They didn't stay in that one movie. They got treated almost immediately as if they'd always been there. Later films borrowed the full moon rule, uncritically. Um, Pulp novels borrowed it, comic books borrowed it. By the time tabletop games and later young adult vampire and werewolf franchises were building on their own werewolf mythologies decades later, the Sotomac rule set wasn't being treated as a clever 1941 screenplay, internal logic. It was being treated as bedrock, um, as the given, the thing you riff off rather than the thing you've invented. Folklorists have a term for this general phenomenon, incidentally, when a piece of modern media invention gets absorbed into popular belief as if it were authentic, traditional folklore. It's sometimes called fake lore, or more academically discussed under the broader idea of invented tradition. The full moon werewolf is functionally one of the most successful pieces of fake lore in modern history. It's got better retention rate than most actual folklores. So there's a slightly funny, slightly sad postscript. Um, Bear with me here. I gotta switch again uh, to Sotomac's story, which is worth sitting with for just a moment by his later account. Um, he never really felt like he got properly compensated, credit wise or otherwise, um, for how enormously influential um, that one screenplay turned out to be. So he wrote The Werewolf as we know it essentially by himself on a work for hire basis for a mid budget monster picture. And then he watched those rules become cultural bedrock, essentially reused for the rest of his life. Excuse me, largely uncredited in the popular imagination. So, I mean, which honestly feels like it could have been its own werewolf movie. The guy who invents the curse and never sees the benefit of what he made. Um, so later, I mean, Universal monster mythology, um, and eventually a wave of werewolf films from the 1970s and 80s onward, like an American Werewolf in London, The Howling that we talked about earlier. They pushed the makeup and transformation technology forward dramatically, going for a more visceral, painful on-screen transformation. Sequences that leaned into like body horror rather than dissolve cut restraints of the 1941 original. But structurally, they almost are still telling Larry Talbot's story. Cursed, usually through a bite, predictable lunar schedule, a weapon with a specific narratively convenient weakness. So, and a protagonist who's more sympathetic victim than villain. All right. So even werewolf stories that try hard to subvert those rules are definitely still in conversation with them. Like you can't subvert a trope nobody's ever heard of. Um, so where does that leave us? A myth that starts as an ancient cross-cultural way of processing humanity's most dangerous, cleverest natural predator that curdles in early modern Europe into a genuine deadly weapon used to torture and execute real innocent people during a period of religious panic and social upheaval. Um, and that gets finally almost entirely rewritten, reinvented top to bottom, rules and all, by a refugee screenwriter and a makeup artist working a difficult, unglamorous job on a Los Angeles backlot in 1941 for a monster movie that ran about 70 minutes and was at the time just one more product on an assembly line of studio horror pictures. None of these three eras really knew about the other two, culturally speaking, at the time. And yet, here we are, 85 years later. And if you asked 100 people on the street what a werewolf needs to fear, you would get Silver Bullet and Full Moon from the overwhelmingly
Me.
majority of them.
Me.
Specific, empathetic, and slightly haunted Hollywood invention has completely and totally colonized the folklore it was supposedly just borrowing from. So, a few things I want to leave you with. Since we covered a lot of fog-drenched ground tonight. One, the werewolf myth, across every era we've talked about, keeps cycling the same central anxiety over and over in different costumes. The fear that the monstrous thing might not be a stranger. If it might be your neighbor, it might be someone you love, it might be in the very worst version of the story, it might be you. And you might not even know it. And you might not be able to stop it once it starts. Didn't know what he'd become until Zeus told him. Larry Talbot didn't know until it was too late, and for everyone around him. That's a genuinely old, genuinely human fear, and it's not going anywhere. No matter how many rubber masks and yak hair applications we bury under it. 2, be a little careful, I think, with how casually we treat the witch and werewolf trials as history's greatest hits, spooky edition. Those are real people. Peter Stump was a real specific person who existed and who was tortured into confessing to being something he almost certainly was not. And he was executed in public as a civic entertainment. It's worth remembering that the werewolf's scariest chapter isn't the one with fangs in it. So, and then the third thing that is a little more fun, I promise. We're allowed to end on a fun note, I think. Next time somebody at a party confidently explains that obviously you need silver bullets, everyone knows that. It's like ancient folklore. You know now that it's not really ancient folklore. It was written on a deadline by a guy who'd fled the Nazis and needed a paycheck and featured a poem he made up on the spot that sounded like old and, like should be carved into a cave wall or something, And started a guy who spent hours in a chair getting yak hair glued to his face so that 85 years later you instinctively know exactly what kills a werewolf. So, that's not folklore failing us, by the way. If anything, it's kind of beautiful. It means that myth is still alive. It's still being written, and it just happens to have a production credit now. So thank you very much. I loved researching that. I wanted to share my Wolfman knowledge with you, and I love that I get to talk about him. Yay! And talk about my love of Lon Chaney Jr. So,
Well, here's 2 episodes of TV you need to watch. And I've probably told you this already, but you need to watch the episode of Doctor Who.
Mhm.
It's set in Victorian England. I can't remember the episode name off the top of my head. Also remember Doctor Who is dealing with aliens.
Mhm.
So it does deal with werewolves on that one.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
So you get to see Queen Victoria and a werewolf.
Ooh. Now, is it
Yeah,
the cheesy werewolf or is it like
yeah,
actually like
kind of.
it looks like a
But still, it's still a good episode, especially because Queen Victoria. Anyways,
okay,
second is Supernatural's monster movie,
awesome.
which is that one you will enjoy.
Okay. Well, like I said, if anyone's interested, the Wolfman movies that starred Lon Chaney Jr., The Wolfman 1941, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman came next, and that's with him and with Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. who plays the Frankenstein monster. And then you have House of Frankenstein, which came next. House of Dracula came after that. And then, of course, there's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And they say that is pretty much non-canon, only because at the end of House of Dracula, um, Lon Chaney is cured of his werewolfism. So, so then you think, well, if he was cured in House of Dracula, how is he turning into the Wolfman again in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which was made later? But it was kind of a fun monster thing, so that's why fans kind of say it's non-canon.
Well,
It's a
I
fun movie.
spun the wheel.
Ooh,
You ready? You got paranormal.
that's funny. I love it. That's awesome. And you know what? That's okay because we're getting more and more into fall, and I love kind of doing more of the spookier stuff. So
Yes, we're just going to start, once we get ready for soup season, it's spooky season. So, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely soup season for me because
yeah.
I want some
Like,
clam chowder.
uh-huh. Yeah. Like I said, yeah, it's getting into. I mean, it's we're still in August, but my daughter was actually just telling me the other day. She's like, "Mom, can we start decorating for Halloween already?" And I'm like, "Of course." You don't have to ask that. Of course. It's August. Why not? Hey, what's funny is I've actually taken all of the Halloween movies that I own because I didn't want to miss any of them. I own a lot. I own a lot more than I do Christmas movies. I don't know what that says about me. Um, I put them in order by year that they were made. Because I didn't want to miss any of them. And I try to start watching them all at around this time of the year because first of all there are so many of them. There's a good number of Halloween movies from 1930, Dracula to present day, like Hocus Pocus 2, Practical Magic 2, that's coming out. Can't wait for that one. We talked about that. Yeah, I know. We talked about that last week. There's so many Halloween movies that I love to watch that I can't fit them all into the month of October. So I have to start earlier. Oh, darn. And that just gets me in the
No,
mood for Halloween. I'm dressing
we'll
up,
just be even
uh,
more
lighting my
spookier.
candle. Yeah, lighting my candle. It's funny on Halloween. I, I think Bailey, my friend's daughter, asked me just recently. She's like, "What do you do on Halloween?" And I was like, "Well, trick or treating, magic circles. What do you mean?" She's like, "What?" I don't know if she knows I'm a witch. I can't remember. I think I told her, but I don't know. Um, it's after trick or treating, I come out to my room. I light my candles, on the four, fall down the four corners, and I commune with my ancestors. So with my family.
Well, I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
in my 20s anymore, so I don't want to go out and get drunk and walk
Mm,
around in
mm.
clothes that are not comfortable in cold weather.
I ha- well, I have been going out for the kids. Tyrion has gone out on his own with friends, but I still go with Arya. And I honestly I haven't dressed up. I dressed up 2 years ago, and that was actually only because I got a costume for free, very last minute, and I was like, "Oh, why the hell not? I'm gonna do this. I haven't dressed up in years." And it was fun, but I had this headgear on, because I was being abducted by aliens, which you would have loved, by the way, because you love aliens. Um, and so, of course, in E-Town here, we have a lot of low-hanging trees. Ooh, lightning. Oh my god, I just talked about the Wolfman. There's lightning outside. Oh god, I thought the doors were locked. Anyway. Um, so I'm just like, I'm getting like hit by tree branches and stuff. I was like, oh my god, this is a horrible costume. And of course, I mean, my kids were slightly younger. It wasn't like I was like running after like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Thank God, I would not have been able to do it. But it was kind of annoying because I was like trying to watch out for them, and I was trying to have my umbrella hat thing get knocked off, and we went with friends of ours because Aria was going out with their son. The husband was kind of like helping me get untangled. So I thought, you know what? I would just go as me for right now. Maybe I'll put a witch's hat on because that's fun. But whatever. I'm not dressing up at least right now. But
Well, and maybe we should do some logistical chat after this about what we want to do for Halloween. Maybe we'll do a special Halloween episode, um, you know, or maybe we could
I
do a
think
live stream
I would
or
love to talk about the history of Samhain. I'd love to talk about the history because that's actually one of the first things I watch is the history of Samhain and Halloween.
I call vampires.
That's fine.
You got
Okay.
the werewolves.
I got werewolves
I
already,
call
so we
vampires.
did werewolves. But that's fine. I'm not a big vampire fan. My mom,
Oh,
was terrified of Frankenstein. I'm like, why? You can outrun him in a heartbeat. Why? Why? And Dracula is all about sex. I mean, Dracula is very sensual, very sexual. I mean, that's not really
hello,
chilling.
Scorpio.
That's not really chilling to me. To me, it's a man who transforms into a man-like creature, but is can kill you. He's fast, he can jump, he can hide, he can stalk you. That's scary. That's fucking scary shit. You
And there's
know.
your Gemini.
So yeah. I to me Wolfman is the classic universal monsters of the classic monsters. I'm not talking about like zombies. Zombies freak me out because I mean I'm like eating people and
Oh,
brains and shit. That's just nasty. You know.
hate zombies.
Yeah, possessed children freak me out. I mean, I was terrified when I
Eh,
had small children because I didn't want them to be like evil, turning of the head, that you see in horror movies.
yeah.
Um, so yeah. I mean, once
Yep,
again, Mummy is
I
a really old guy. This shit's not scary except for the Wolfman. The Wolfman, in my esteem, is the scariest of the Universal.
well, though I didn't grow up on the old ones. I grew up
Mhm.
on the 80s,
That's because you had young
watching it
parents.
with my dad.
Yeah, you had young parents. I didn't.
Yeah.
I had older parents
So,
who were raised on those
and
movies.
my dad was a wild child. So,
Mhm. Oh, I'm
so
sure your dad I
I
can see
grew
your
up
dad liking
watching,
The Howling. I can see your dad liking The Howling. He would be the kinda guy that would like The Howling.
I don't remember, but, I did watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I watched Tales of the Crypt with my dad. So,
That would be your dad. That would be your dad.
so,
I can see
so
that.
for me, it's more of the psychological thrillers that get to me
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then I just sit there and watch the gory
Well,
stuff and I'm like, I'm bored.
interesting interestingly enough, like, The Wolfman, when Kurt Sotomac wrote, um, the screenplay, originally, you weren't supposed to know if Larry Talbot actually physically changes into a wolf. Um you were supposed to wonder if is he actually a werewolf, like someone who actually transformed, or is it all in his mind? Is it all
Hmm.
up here? You know? Um, and I think, obviously for Hollywood, they're like, we gotta actually change him. We gotta see a
Hmm.
wolf. We gotta see that. That's what's scary. That's what's gonna bring people into the seats. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, you weren't supposed to know. And apparently Larry Talbot, from what I also read, was not that nice of a guy. In Chris Adamac's original screenplay, he was not that nice of a guy. He was more of a douchey asshole. Who was a kind of a peeping tom. And that's how he met Gwen, the shopkeeper's daughter. Which, in my mind, I'm glad he changed to like this kind of carefree, kind of hapless kind of guy because it makes you feel more for him. If he would have been a douche, you would have been like, "Oh god, I hope he gets killed." Like, what the hell? Like, who cares about this guy? No one's gonna care about a guy like that. But
Hmm.
hapless Joe Schmo, everyday kind of guy who could just be like you and me. Who this this curse falls upon him, because he saved somebody. He was trying to save Gwen's friend Jenny. Well, he doesn't save her. She dies. She ends up dying. But I mean, his reward for saving her is to get bitten himself. And, you know, and through the remaining movies, all he wants to do is die because he does not want to go on killing. He does not want to continue to be this monster. And that's one of my favorite things is that he's not a monster. Dracula's a monster all the time. Frankenstein's a monster all the time. The Mummy's a monster all the time. Lon Chaney Jr. is not a monster as Larry Talbot. He is not. He is a human being. Someone who, wouldn't hurt a fly, who's kind to people, who's loving, who wants to protect people, who wants to end his own life so that he doesn't keep killing who we see on the outside versus who we really are on the inside. He's a genuinely lovable character when he's a human. And then he turns into this monster. And that's tragic. It's really tragic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a story behind them all, so definitely.
Could it be also kind of going through puberty type of thing too? Hair growing in places that, you never had hair before, and the changing of emotions, the changing of it. So I mean that puberty was
The
also, I guess, kind
second
of a
puberty for women, perimenopause, growing hair where you don't normally grow hair,
yeah,
turning into rabid feral beasts.
or if you live in Lancaster County, you have fur on your faces no matter what age you are after puberty. I'm not talking about me, by the way. I'm not talking about me. I've seen poor furry face women around this area. So, but
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Anyway,
But yeah, so yeah, maybe get us some of your spooky, scary stories to us at sorandomandweirdpod@gmail.com, and maybe we can do a spooky story time of your guys's
you have favorite
incidences.
monsters? Yeah. You have favorite monsters and want to tell us which one's your favorite or yeah.
Rate and review and leave comments so that way we know what to do, because you did almost get history when I spun it. So I had to spin it again because I'm doing history,
Yeah.
So let us know if you want us to do whatever it actually lands on the first time, even if it's a double. Let us know what we're doing right, what you'd like to see. Give us some suggestions on what we can do. And yeah, so, share us with your friends, your coworkers, your worst enemy, if you feel like it. And,
Yeah. We'd love to have, you share your thoughts and feelings with us. We want to hear from you.
so with that, stay curious, stay weird, and don't go into the woods tonight.
Especially during full moon. Especially during full
Yep.
moon. Stay inside, lock the doors. All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Love
Bye.
you.
Love you guys.